Okay, well, keep an eye out in the waiting room for those that are a little bit late, but just in the interest of time, we could get started here. All right, so hello everyone, and welcome to Green Learning's Electrify Your Drive, Explore the World of Electric Vehicles. So this is a really special workshop in honor of Earth Day, which happened yesterday. My name is Andriana Saluk, and I'm Green Learning's project manager, and I'm excited to be here today to share some cool information about electric vehicles and a really neat project that we've been working on with a local high school here in Calgary, Alberta. I'm also joined here today by my colleague, Meg Henderson. She'll be helping me out with the Zoom polls this afternoon, monitoring the chat, as well as, just keeping an eye out and helping answer any questions that you may have. So again, please use the chat feature if you're able. We'll also be using some Zoom polls as well as watching some videos and whatnot too. And at the end, we'll have some times for questions and for discussions, but please feel free to unmute yourself if you have any questions throughout this presentation. So in the spirit of respect, reciprocity, and truth, I am grateful to live and work in Mohkinstsis. This is the Blackfoot name of the land we have come to know as Calgary, on the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7. Treaty 7 region is also where this workshop was designed and where the Electrifying the EV Future workshop is taking place. So a little bit about Green Learning. Green Learning is a Canada-wide nonprofit organization, and we create free online educational programs about energy, climate change, green economy that really engage and empower students to create positive change for our evolving world. And we really focus on connecting student learning to action. All of our resources and activities are free on our website, and they do fall under provincial curriculum because we do work with teachers to create these resources. So I highly encourage you to check us out. So a little bit about this virtual session and what we're doing here. We're here to celebrate Earth Month and have fun and learn a little bit about electric vehicles. I'm also super excited to be here today to talk to you about a really cool project that was led by students right here in Calgary. And I'll be sharing some advocacy tools and resources with you to empower you to continue learning and supporting environmental initiatives. We'll also be playing a couple of interactive games, so I want everyone to have the opportunity to learn, participate, as well as be respectful. So today we have a total of 45 minutes together or so, and we'll be playing a couple of fun and interactive games through this presentation. We at Green Learning, we're just really curious to understand how much knowledge youth today have about EVs, and it just really helps cater our resources to you when we create them. We'll be playing a couple of videos. We'll speak to our plans about what's happening this upcoming year and help you discover some tools and resources to move your own projects, interests, and different initiatives at your school moving forward. And then, of course, we'll conclude with a Q&A, but please feel free to ask any questions throughout this presentation if you do have any. So I have a little mission for you all right off the bat here. I'd like you to write down as many pros and cons that you can think of about electric vehicles. So what do you think you know? What have you heard? The more answers, the better. There are no wrong answers here. This is just kind of for me to gauge your knowledge and understanding of electric vehicles. So students, if you have an idea, just please raise your hand and your teacher will call on you. Teachers, if you could please just write your student's answer in the chat box that I'll be monitoring, that would be great. Alternatively, if you would like to turn your cameras on and say your answer, we can do that as well. So I will give you 3 minutes on the clock to write down as many answers as possible in the chat here. I can start you off with an example. So some things that people have mentioned to me before is that a pro is that electric vehicles use renewable energy, and that a con is that they are expensive. So that's one example. And if you need any help for examples along the way, I can definitely offer those to you. I'm just going to start my timer here so you're able to actually view it. So again, we have 3 minutes, and if you can write down as many possible answers as you can, that would be fantastic. So I have started the timer here, that little bubble just above my head here. And yes, please feel free to write down as many answers as possible. All right, so we've got our first answer in here, not cost effective. Yeah, that's definitely something that has come up in my conversations with others. Lack of infrastructure in power grid. Absolutely. If we are going to continue with coming up with all these technologies and as EVs get more popular, that is something that we would have to look at in terms of infrastructure and whatnot. Oh, fantastic. We have another class that has joined. Welcome, everyone. My name is Andriana, and I'll be leading this session today. We're just starting our first exercise, and I have tasked you with writing down as many pros and cons that you can think of when it comes to electric vehicles. No wrong answers, of course. We do have about a minute and 30 seconds if you'd like to add your answers into the chat, teachers and students. Yeah, if you wanted to just shout your answer out to the teacher, that would be fantastic, and they can write it down in the chat. Zero emission. That's right. That's a great pro. Other pros we have here are we save gas, environmentally friendly, lots of torque, less pollution. That's correct. All great answers, everyone. Thank you. We have about a minute left now. Just to input as many answers as you can possibly think of. Again, no right or wrong answers. So you're still using fossil fuels to power vehicles in many cases. Very true. Another con is that you have long charging times, that they're expensive, as well as the driving range. Yes, I have heard that they don't do as well in the winter as they do in the summer. So driving range is definitely something to take into account. Torque, instant power, zero emissions while driving. A con is that it sounds like a vacuum, yet you definitely don't have that, roar of the engine when you start it up. Battery production, mining is a big con for sure. Range and charging infrastructure. Awesome. So it looks like we were out of time now. So I'll just stop my timer here. If anybody wants to add in any last pros and cons in here, I can definitely wait a couple of minutes for those that have joined as well. If not, I can definitely move on in the presentation here. But yes, thank you everyone so much for adding these pros and cons in here. It sounds like you had some great conversations in class, which I love to see. So we can maybe move on in the presentation here, just in the interest of time. I also have another fun kind of interactive game that I'm excited to play with you all today. So it's all about checking your EV knowledge, and I'm really hoping that we can kind of incorporate some of the pros and cons we made in the last list here. So essentially, I'm going to have a statement on a slide, and by a show of hands, you have to decide if you think the statement is a fact, so you give your teacher a thumbs up, or if it's a myth, so thumbs down. I encourage everyone to participate, so even if you're not sure about the answer, you could just give your teacher a little sideways thumb if you'd like. Teachers, please use the Zoom poll just to answer the questions with whatever the majority consensus is in your class. It's just going to be multiple choice fact or myth, so it should be pretty easy. And yeah, we can take as much time as we need, just because there are quite a few classes joining us today, which is exciting. I'm going to start you off with just a practice question, just to see if you guys have been paying attention and whatnot, and just so we can get familiar with the polls and whatnot. So our first question is, I am currently presenting from Calgary, Alberta right now. Is that a fact or a myth? So you get to select one of those multiple choice questions. And for those that just joined a little bit late, you might be wrong, and that's totally okay, as I realize you have not heard my spiel in the beginning. And then once everyone has added their results, we can share them as well, so you could see. Oh, awesome. So it looks like everyone went with fact, which is correct. I am, in fact, presenting from Calgary, Alberta. This is also where the Electrifying the Future project is taking place with the local high school here, that I will chat a little bit more about later. Okay, so now we can get into the real like EV related questions. So my first question is, transportation accounts for approximately 25% or a quarter of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions. Are we thinking that's a fact or a myth? Give you a couple more minutes to deliberate here. All right. So it looks like we're split 60-40. 60% of you went with fact and 40% of you went with myth. So that is a fact. Transportation does account for 25% of Canada's greenhouse gas emissions, and that's domestic greenhouse gas emissions. So that's a quarter of all emissions just because of regular transportation, like running trucks and cars and things like that. But why is that the case? So that's because of internal combustion engines. I also refer to them as ICE throughout this presentation. So they are the most common form of heat engines as they are used in vehicles, boats, ships, airplanes, trains. You probably took the bus this morning. If your bus wasn't an electric bus, then it has an internal combustion engine within it. So internal combustion engines most commonly use fossils from fossil fuels, or fuels from fossil fuels, sorry. And they're named as such because the fuel is ignited in order to do work inside of the engine. So harmful greenhouse gases like carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides, and hydrocarbons are released into our environment when fuel burns in an internal combustion engine. So, question two, fact or myth? Electric vehicles are cars that operate on an electric motor without the use of gasoline or a combination of gas and electricity. Give you another minute or so to answer the Zoom polls here. All right, so majority of consensus, 100% of you said that it is a fact, and you are all correct. So there are three different types of electric vehicles. The first you have is a hybrid, so it's powered by gasoline and an electric motor, and the battery is recharged while the vehicle is running on gas. We also have plug-in hybrid electric vehicles, so they're similar to those conventional hybrids, but they can be plugged in to recharge the battery. And then you have your battery electric vehicle. So those are 100% powered by an electric motor and a battery. So well done, everyone. All right, question three, fact or myth? Electric vehicles were invented decades before the internal combustion engine. So what came first? We think electric vehicles or internal combustion engine vehicles? I'll give you another minute or so just to answer this one. All right, so 40% of you said that it is a fact, and 60% of you went with myth. Let's see here. So that is actually a fact. Electric vehicles were around for 40 years before the invention of gasoline-powered cars. So here are some of the first and most influential electric vehicles invented. So around 1832, Robert Anderson actually invented the first crude electric car, and this car was powered by a non-rechargeable battery. So this actually meant that the battery had to be charged every time it ran out, which was, yeah, a ton of work and super tedious. The next notable electric vehicle is Thomas Parker's 1884 vehicle, and this was the first electric car in the UK that was actually usable. William Morrison then invented the first electric car in 1890 in America, and this really propelled the innovation of electric vehicles in the coming years. In 1898, Ferdinand Porsche actually invented his famous P1. So this was the first Porsche ever invented, and it looks like a horse-drawn carriage, but was actually powered by an electric motor, which is really cool. So yeah, who knew that Porsche's first vehicle was actually electric? Question number 4, fact or myth? The first gasoline powered vehicles were quick and easy to start, which is why they became more popular than electric vehicles. Give everyone another 30 seconds to answer this one. All right, looks like 40% of you went with fact and 60% of you went with myth. So almost a tiebreaker here again. So that is actually a myth, and I have this short video here explaining why. If the video doesn't happen to work or if you can't hear it, please let me know, and we can definitely figure out an alternative. I will just play this.
Come on. But once upon a time, it was not near. Come on. And the headlights come on. But once upon a time, it was not nearly that easy. Back in the early days, we used a crank to start the car.
Crank starting was not only hard, but it was also dangerous. You had to stick the handle in the hole, give it a good crank. If you're lucky, it started. If you're unlucky, the crank handle would fly out of there, either hit you in the head or break your wrist or your arm.
The 1912 Model 30 Cadillac was the first vehicle with an electric starting system and electric lighting system. So you were no longer required to turn a crank to start it or light the lights with a match.
Then
So I'm just going to play just a little bit of that video here, but back in the early days, you had to actually use a crank to start your gasoline powered car, as a gentleman in the video here showed. So it was really tedious and tough to do so, and you could easily injure yourself while doing so as well. Move on here. So how did ICE vehicles or internal combustion engine vehicles become so popular? Well, by 1912, the gasoline car costed about $650, while an electric roadster sold for $1,750. So this made ICE vehicles the more affordable option. That same year, Charles Kettering introduced the electric starter. So this eliminated the need for the hand crank, and this gave rise to more gasoline-powered vehicle sales. So internal combustion engine vehicles were actually more affordable and eventually more convenient instead of, using the hand crank and potentially injuring yourself. In the 1960s and 70s, we actually saw high gas prices, and the interest in EVs definitely returned, but the range wasn't very good and they dropped in popularity again. In the early 1990s, we had new federal regulations and policies that were put into place. So this improved the performance and efficiency, and companies started to invest more in going electric. Question number 5. An electric vehicle is greener or emits fewer greenhouse gases if driven in British Columbia compared to Alberta. This is a bit of a tricky one. So give your best guess here. Give everyone 30 more seconds. All right, so 80% of you said it is a fact and 20% said that it is a myth. So it is a fact, and I'll explain why here because this is a bit of a trick question. So the distribution of energy across each province does vary in Canada. So most of the electricity in Alberta, for example, is produced from fossil fuels such as coal and natural gas, and only a small percentage is produced from renewable energy like wind, hydro, and biomass. British Columbia, our neighboring province, actually relies mainly on renewable energy sources, the biggest being hydroelectricity. So it is technically the quote unquote greener province. If you are interested in seeing how other provinces compare, we at Green Learning actually have an electrical energy calculator available for free on our website that I highly encourage you to check out, and you can view some really cool stats there. Awesome. So that concludes that fun interactive game. Thank you so much for playing along, everyone. And I hope you were able to learn a fact or two about EVs. And moving on in the presentation, I'm now just going to play a short video that is an introduction to a really cool project that we're working on here with a local high school in Calgary. So without further ado, I will go ahead and play this.
Green Learning's Electrifying the Future pilot project prepares students for future electrification of transportation. We piloted Electrifying the Future at Crescent Heights High School in Calgary, Alberta, which offered students and educators in the Calgary Board of Education the opportunity to convert 2 gas-powered vehicles into electric and install a charging station. We also worked with post-secondary institutions, Southern Alberta Institute of Technology and University of Calgary's Re-Electric team to determine opportunities for expanding learning. The intention behind this pilot project is to revolutionize current automotive education in Alberta with in-demand skills needed to support the growing trends in electric vehicles. With the results of this pilot, we intend to help other organizations keep pace with this transition towards the electrification of transportation by sharing our findings and experiences. The first vehicle students converted was a 1975 Volkswagen Beetle. This vehicle was more challenging to remove the body from the frame and required a lot of bodywork and restoration due to its condition and age. The second vehicle was a 2009 Ford Ranger. This was a great learning option because students could install and view each EV component more easily. The power steering and brakes made this a more complex conversion to convert as opposed to manual. However, it required no restoration work because of the newer vehicle.
What kind of opportunities has this project brought for all students at Crescent Heights outside of automotives?
Right, because this was generated through the automotives program, certainly students that were in the project or in the class got the opportunity to work on the project. However, this is also done as a club outside, so there was opportunity for students from different classes and different disciplines. They don't actually have to be automotive students to have been part of the project, including one of our classes who did a lot of design for this, came up with the logo and actually won a prize for that. Of course, we connected with the Career and Technology Center. Our first vehicle was a 1975 Beetle and needed extensive bodywork and painting.
Tasks have students done on this vehicle?
Well, where do we start? Every panel was taken apart, straightened, repaired, put back together, taken apart again, make sure they fit. The whole lower section of the car was actually replaced, and then all the dents repaired, and then refinished. As you can see, all nice and kosher painted.
And what impact do you hope this project has?
I hope when it's completed, that students can be proud of the fact that they can do the work the electrifying cars old and new, to see that, things can be rebuilt and reborn running old, and that it's not just gasoline or electric that's powering it. There is options available, provided that infrastructure is in place to handle it.
A dual port charging station was successfully installed, we chose a level 2 charging station, which seemed best suited for the converted vehicles. CBE Sustainability Coordinator Olena Olson says, I hope it allows the CBE to seriously consider implementation of charging station technology and spurs a discussion of what role do we play. On the learning side, also considering how are we preparing students for the inevitable future. The goal of this project was to engage as many students as possible. The Electric Car Club was an after-school opportunity for students passionate about this pilot project to dedicate extracurricular time to the vehicle conversions. Green Learning's innovative program has provided my students with a one-of-a-kind opportunity to apply and showcase their skills and learn new skills. This is an extremely important program to have an internal combustion alternative, and I'm very proud to see all their hard work come together, says Cody Price, automotive teacher, Crescent Heights High School.
Has looking on this vehicle changed how you see the transition to electric in the auto industry? Yeah, I think that it's definitely kind of like helps us see some of that and like if there's something big going, like even if it's like we're not converting every single car, just some of the components that electric vehicles need to have.
Like the engine for like a combustion is so much more complex. Everything like electric complex. So much more complex. I guess.
I think it's a new experience for all of us working on an electric car. So we're looking towards the future. Kind of just relax. Do you think these skills that you learned working on the vehicle are helpful to you finding a job?
Sure. Like if you're gonna like engineering or robotics, you're just like it's not like the car. It's like good for electronic anything. You're gonna see the robotics engineering like on there.
It's a great thing to have on your resume. It's a good thing to have on your resume, and it's like if this is the direction that lots of cars are gonna go, then having that background knowledge is. How does a project like this benefit our students while preparing for the future?
Our students are getting the opportunity firsthand to understand a lot of the skills that are needed to work with an electric vehicle. A big part of it is definitely a safety component. It is a little bit different than working on an internal combustion engine. So they're gaining those skills, and when they're moving into the workforce, then they have a set of skills that even some of the more experienced technicians that they're working with just won't have. So really set them up well for career as they go forward, or even the reality is a lot of people are going to own electric vehicles in this short while, and just being an owner of an electric vehicle and having this experience will set them up much better to make informed decisions about whether an electric vehicle is right for them.
The project was showcased at a number of outreach events, including Charged Up Calgary, World of Wheels, and SATE Industry Night.
What's next? Well, there's still work to be done, and we will be continuing that. Andrea and Megan have been interviewing all of the people. They've been documenting the whole process. And we're taking all of that to create kind of a lessons learned guide. We have the online simulator tool. And so we're going to be sharing that with schools and school boards across Canada, the ministries of education that do the curriculum to say what needs to happen in the curriculum. And we're also going to look at replicating these partnerships with high schools and post-secondary. There's new sparks of ideas coming from this project, our dual credit courses, things that could benefit the students in the future as well with automobiles and electric vehicles.
All right. So that was a quick, video overview of our project, which was really a multidimensional education pilot project. So we worked with both secondary as well as post-secondary youth to learn about this transition to zero emission vehicles. So students at a local high school here in Calgary converted 2 gasoline engine vehicles into electric vehicles. We also were able to install a dual port charging station at the school, and this was of course partnered in Alberta with the Calgary Board of Education. So it was not only one school that was involved in this project, but actually several schools were able to help out with this project, which was super neat. Here's some photos from the EV club that was created. So not only were automotive students involved in this project, but we have students from different backgrounds that participated in this as well, and different programs that they were a part of, which is super neat. So students actually formed this EV club and got together once a week to work on the vehicle outside of class time on their own time, which was really fantastic. And students from another school within the Calgary Board of Education actually did the whole paint job and the restoration. The Beetle was, of course, in a farmer's field for 10 years, so they really had their work cut out for them, and they really did a fantastic job. Students that were also a part of woodworking are working on kind of creating interior panelings for the vehicle and little knobs and the dashboard and whatnot. So that's really neat. And then we also did like a design contest where students created logos for the vehicle, and they all voted on their favorite one, and the winner will have their logo showcased on the vehicle. So this project really wasn't just limited to students that are in mechanics. Students from a range of different interests and backgrounds, and even from different schools were a part of this project as well, which was so nice to see. So of course, as the electrification of transportation becomes more and more popular, the demand for electric vehicle education programs, as well as jobs for those future generations like yourselves, will increase as well. It was mentioned in the video that the lead teacher on our vehicle conversion project received further EV education and safety training. So he attended a course at the British Columbia Institute of Technology, and his education was so incredibly vital to our project. And we do hope that other universities and colleges kind of look into introducing these programs to keep up with this inevitable future demand. The two students standing next to the old school blue Volvo that you see in the left-hand corner there are actually engineering students from an EV club at the University of Calgary. So they were one of our project partners and participated on our advisory committee, and they offered us advice as well. So we had high school students that had an EV club working on the Beetle, and then we had these students at a higher up university level. So that was really fantastic to have them involved and offer their expertise as well. We did take a little field trip to an NMAX facility right here in Calgary. So NMAX is a utilities company when it comes to like natural gas and electricity, and they are currently the first utility in Canada to pilot medium duty electric vehicles as part of their commitment to a greener future. So their goal is to electrify 35% of their mobile fleet by 2035, which is so exciting, to hear. Another aspect of this project, of course, involved installing the charging station at the high school. So there were a couple of photos here that you can see of the charging station technician actually came from a local company called Zeno Renewables. And this is a local solar technology company, and they specialize in solar panels and charging station installation. So there really are many ways to be involved with electric vehicles, whether you want to join, the local club at your school, further your education through university, buy an EV and actually drive it, or pursue a career or work for a company that makes conscious environmental decisions. So now we're going to play our next interactive game, and it's called Would You Rather? As I mentioned before, we're just really curious to understand your view about EVs, and it just really helps us cater our resources, research, and findings. So we'll again be using the Zoom polls to answer the questions. So I'll be giving you two options, and you have to choose which one you would rather do, or which one you would rather go with, or which one resonates with you most. So we will again use the Zoom polls to answer these questions. So let's start off with our first question here. Would you rather convert an old classic or convert a pickup truck? And of course, there are no wrong answers here. Just a few more seconds here. All right, looks like 20% of you chose to convert an old classic, whereas the majority of you chose to go with newer technology and convert a pickup truck. So there are, of course, so many things to consider if you get the chance to do a big project and such a big undertaking like this one. We were lucky enough to actually have two vehicles for the students to convert. The first was a 1975 Volkswagen Beetle, and the second was a 2009 Ford Ranger. And there were so many differences between the two vehicles in terms of technology, what kind of state they were in, how much body work we had to do, what kind of parts we had to get, and what kind of conversion kits we had to get. So there's a lot to consider when taking on something like this for sure. All right, question number 2. Would you rather travel across Canada in an electric vehicle or a gas-powered vehicle? All right. Oh, very interesting. So 100% of you actually decided that you would rather travel in a gas-powered vehicle, and that's totally understandable. I find that people actually don't think that there are as many charging stations as there are because you don't see them as readily available. So oftentimes you'll see charging stations in, mall parking lots, outside of shops, outside of restaurants. But a lot of vehicles these days do have apps built in, so you can look up the nearest charging station to you. And Google Maps does have this feature as well, which is really neat. I am way out in the suburbs in Calgary, but from where I'm presenting, there are quite a few charging stations around me. So check out Google Maps next time, and you'd be surprised to see how many charging stations are readily available to you. Public charging stations, that is. And hopefully in the future, there'll be more and more installed, making it easier for us to access. Question number 3, would you rather have a charging station installed at your school or have a gas pump installed at your school? Okay, so 40% of you went with the EV charging station and 60% with the gas pump, which is super neat. So it's obviously much more, cleaner and more environmentally friendly to go with an EV charger instead of the gas pump. But I also recognize that many students at the high school level probably have gas-powered cars, so it makes more sense to have a gas pump installed. As the transition, of course, of the industry, continues to evolve and transition into electric, I'm hoping that we'll see more and more charging stations readily available. Question number 4, would you rather join an EV club at your school or join a painting, woodworking, or design club at your school? Okay, so it looks like we're kind of split here with 60% joining an EV club and 40% joining another club. Well, I have great news for you because with our project, we found that students can actually do it all. We had students that were involved in the project and a part of the EV club from a range of different, programs and had a range of different interests. So we were able to get as many schools within the school board as well as many students involved in the project. So if you're able to take on a project like this, yeah, there's so much opportunity for different students at different levels and different interests to join, which is so great. So thank you everyone for playing along with me. That kind of concludes our last interactive game as we kind of move to the end of our presentation here. So next steps for the organization that I work at, we kind of intend to help others keep pace with the electrification of transportation by sharing our findings and our experiences through some of the really great materials that we created that are available on our website about the project. We have a lot of great like EV programs and activities as well. And of course, we're doing a lot of these virtual workshops as well and kind of spreading the word about the project, but also, just about EVs and kind of dispelling some of those myths and facts and whatnot. In terms of next steps for students, an easy place to start would be to sign up for one of our Green Learning Challenges. So we have a re-energy program specifically where you can kind of become a renewable energy engineer by designing, building, and testing a working model of any renewable energy technology, such as an EV model. And you could also be entered to win cash prizes for your class, which is super exciting. This is a short video that I wanted to play. It's just students racing their EV models from a school in Edmonton that participated in our challenge. I'll just show a quick, just skip ahead here to the minute 23 mark just to kind of show that off for you guys. But they had a ton of fun with this one. Yeah, so that was just a short little video that they created, just showing how much fun that they had at their school, and they had a few more projects on the go as well. So another way that you can kind of get involved with this project is through our eCards program. So eCards is an environmental education advocacy tool for grades 7 to 12. That's brand new to our website. And it kind of aims to empower youth to act for climate by learning about different environmental issues, creating those informed messages and acting on them. So it's like essentially a virtual card that you can send to a decision maker, and you can express what you have learned through your research and what matters most to you through art and writing, if that's more so your speed rather than hands-on working on vehicles. And you can just generate awareness about a topic that's meaningful and important to you. So here are some Earth Month eCard examples that we received from a school that participated in this program up in Edmonton. So you can see students shared their art and their stories after a teacher came across our program. So one student, some students decide to upload their hand-drawn art while others kind of choose to put their graphic design skills to the test, which is super fun. If you're interested in learning more about electric vehicles, just ask your teachers. I will be sending a follow-up email after this session, just with all of the resources that I mentioned, previously within the activities and things that we did. We have, the guide that we created as well. We also, in terms of, I guess, next steps for teachers, we also created a workshop specifically for teachers where you get to hear interviews from the teachers that were in charge of the project and kind of like their inside scoop and some tips and tricks that we learned along the way. We have, of course, created a how-to guide as well, filled with all of the information, each steps that we took in great detail about the project. And then we at Green Learning offer just some really cool tools and resources that are free as well that I have packaged up in like an educator package that I can send to you as well. So you could do some activities with your students and whatnot and further the education about EVs that way. So this kind of concludes my presentation. Thank you everyone so much for tuning in today. I do have a couple of minutes for questions, but I totally understand if you do need to jump off the call as well. Yeah, I hope it was informative. You learned a thing or two about EVs, and this local student presentation was inspiring, and maybe one day this could be a photo of your class. That would be pretty cool if more schools could be involved in projects like this. So I'll, open the floor up to any questions that anybody has, or you can feel free to pop a question in the chat or email me directly as well. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for joining me today. Yeah, if you need to go, that's no problem at all. I can hang on the call here if you'd like for a couple minutes just to answer any questions as well. No problem, everyone. And I will be in touch and I will offer a lot more information as well. Oh, you have a question from a student. That's great. Yeah, please feel free to unmute yourself, or you could even type a message in the chat there. No problem. Yep, typing is totally fine. Ooh, that's a great question. So the question is, what is even the point of electric cars if carbon emissions are created while making the electricity for them? Very valid. I am, of course, not an electric vehicle expert, but I know a big topic right now is to diversify, just to diversify like our emissions and our industry. This is a big topic in specifically where I am located right now in Alberta. Alberta very much heavily relies on, fossil fuels, oil and gas and whatnot, and that may not always be the most sustainable way to extract our resources in the future. So diversifying that is very important. And it's true that EVs are not 100% environmentally friendly, but I do hope that as we make that kind of transition into electric, as more technology is involved, while we the more we learn, the more education, the more programs are out there, I'm really hoping that this technology can eventually evolve and become a lot safer and healthier when it comes to emissions and whatnot. So we will see what the future holds, but I am really hoping that just through research and education we could hopefully not solve that problem, but ease up on the carbon emissions for sure. Oh, one more question. Fantastic. Yes, please go ahead. There are, of course, like a lot of pros to electric vehicles as well. Like they are quite fast. They have a lot of torque if that's something that interests you. They are relatively quiet on the streets, which is really, really great as well if you live in like really populated, dense urban areas. So there are, yeah, a lot of really great pros to them as well. Great questions. I appreciate it.
If I could jump in super quick, I know I've been in quiet mode, but my name's Megan. I always also work for Green Learning. So yeah, that's a great question. And I think, although I won't be able to give as eloquent as an answer as Adriana, I will say that I also do believe that the carbon emissions are less with electric cars than they are with their counterparts. So while they're not a perfect solution, they are more eco-friendly than their alternatives. So again, great question, because I think it's always good to critique the solutions that we have. But yeah, I do believe they are less carbon intensive.
Very true. Thanks so much for jumping in, Meg. I really appreciate it. What is the rebate given when buying and using electric cars? Knowing Doug Ford taking it away, what is the rebate in other provinces on home and on road charging? That's actually a great question. I unfortunately don't know what the rebates are currently in other provinces, Ontario, Alberta included, when it comes to charging to buying electric vehicles as well as buying charging stations. I know that there's rebates on both, especially if you are considering installing like a charging station in your own home. But that is something that I would actually need to research a little bit more into. And encourage everyone to kind of do as much, research and look into that information as much as possible, especially if you are seriously considering into transitioning into an electric vehicle. So I definitely, I think, varies from province to province. But if anyone else here happens to know off the top of your head, please feel free to jump in. I'd love to kind of hear what people have come across as well, because this news is constantly changing. We weren't able to do this project without the help of federal funding through the program is called the ZVA, which I can type in the chat here. Oh, neat. Okay, so you are in New York State. Equivalent programs like this here in the US that you know of. I can do a little bit of digging, Jennifer, and find out for you. I think some of my colleagues may have some ties or some ideas, because we are based here in Canada. So I only know of our Canadian kind of like-minded organizations, but I can definitely get in touch with you and do some more digging when it comes to that. Oh, I misspelt that. The program that we went through for federal funding for this project is ZVA. So I think it was Zero Emission Vehicle Awareness Initiative.
Yeah, to go back to the previous question we were talking about concerning the rebates, I'm not an expert on all provinces by any means, but I do know the province of British Columbia has created a really exciting program with increasing rebates. Also depending on the year of the model. But yeah, there's really interesting programs coming out. So I encourage you. I know people are coming from different places across the country, so and even international. So I encourage you to look into your provincial or statewide policies.
Oh, that's so neat, Jennifer. Yeah, looks like you got a hybrid Jeep Wrangler last May, and they were offering a $7,000 rebate in New York, which is, yeah, really, really fantastic that they have these neat programs. Yeah, definitely something that we should be looking into as well here in Alberta, but it does, I guess, vary depending on where you are. So I have one last question here. Are there any plans for more ethical means of sourcing materials for electric vehicles like cobalt, as many places where these minerals are sourced are plagued with unethical working and mining practices such as Congo? I sure hope so. I guess I cannot speak to other countries, like, because I am located in Canada and we are a Canadian based company. I guess this kind of spills into the first question here, as more money, I guess, gets put into electric vehicles and sourcing and manufacturing and sourcing those materials and whatnot. I am hoping that it does become a greener practice in the future as we kind of develop further technologies and develop thus developing further ethical practices of sourcing it and whatnot. In terms of plans in Canada here, I think our Prime Minister is looking into manufacturing more vehicles like in Canada here, which is really interesting. I think a lot of the vehicles that we currently drive are manufactured in like in America and whatnot. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens here within the next 5 and 10 years as more technologies develop, as people are more educated and whatnot. I don't know, Megan, if you know off the top of your head if there's anything coming down the pipeline about this, but yeah, these are all really, really great questions that are, I guess, a little bit out of my scope personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means expert on the actual mining of the cobalt itself. I do agree that this is, first of all, thank you for asking this question. I know this is a really big ethical concern. It's something that I've considered myself when considering purchasing an electric vehicle. So yeah, I think that's why it's so important to become educated about these issues and realize, again, as I was saying before, that while this may be an exciting solution concerning a less carbon intensive problem, we do need to push and be aware of the social implications that these solutions also have for, like, so we can hopefully and put some consumer pressure to change these practices as well that these companies are doing. So thank you so much for that question. And I think that just showcases why it's so important to be engaged so that we can really push to make sure that this is both environmentally safe and socially conscious. So yeah.
Yeah, well put, Megan. Thank you. Yeah, and thank you so much for all those great questions, everyone. I really appreciate you taking the time to hang out with us today and learn a bit about green learning, the projects we're working on, as well as a little bit about electric vehicles. So I hope everyone has a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week, and I will be in touch. Thank you. Awesome. Oh, and Megan, you can stop the recording now.